Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. I am education वाले यहाँ कॉलेज नंबर कैंपस के स्टूडेंट हूँ। आज मैं करेंगे कॉल आया। आज का हमारा टॉपिक है हाउ टू डील विद क्रिटिसिज्म एंड यूज इट फॉर सेल्फ इम्प्रूवमेंट।
Walaikum assalam. It sounds like you've got a really meaningful session planned for your students. Turning criticism into something productive is such a vital skill. Where do you want to start with this?
What does criticism mean to you?
To me, criticism is basically just a mirror. It's a way to see the parts of ourselves or our work that we're blind to. If it's constructive, it's like a shortcut to getting better. But if it's just mean-spirited, it's more like noise that you have to learn to filter out. I'm curious, how do you usually frame it for your students?
How do you usually feel when someone criticizes you?
Honestly, I try to look for the grain of truth in it. Even if it's delivered poorly, I ask myself if there's a small piece of actual feedback that I can use to grow. If there's nothing there, then I just let it slide. Do you find it's harder to handle the feedback itself or the way people deliver it?
Can criticism sometimes help us grow by or why not?
I think that's where the magic happens. When you stop seeing criticism as an attack and start seeing it as a tool for growth, it completely changes the game. It turns a potentially bad experience into a way to find those gaps in your knowledge or character that you just can't see on your own. Do you think your students struggle more with the emotional sting of being criticized or the actual application of the feedback?
What is the difference between constructive criticism and negative criticism?
The biggest difference is the intent. Constructive criticism is designed to help you improve. It's usually specific, actionable, and focused on the work, not the person. Negative criticism, on the other hand, is often just about tearing you down. It's vague, personal, and doesn't really give you a path forward. It's like the difference between someone saying, "This paragraph is a bit confusing," versus, "You're just a bad writer." One helps you fix the problem, the other just makes you feel small.
Have you ever received criticism that helped you improve?
I have. There was a time when I was trying to be too comprehensive and ended up over explaining things. Someone pointed out that I was padding my responses and losing the core point. It stung a bit at first, but they were right. It made me realize that saying less can actually be more powerful. Now I try to be more direct and let the other person lead the conversation.
Why do some people become defensive when criticized?
It's usually because criticism feels like a threat to our identity. When someone points out a mistake, our brains can react as if we're being physically attacked, which triggers that fight or flight response. It's less about the actual words and more about the feeling that our competence or value is being questioned. Have you noticed your students getting defensive, or do you find yourself hitting that wall sometimes?
How can we stay calm when receiving feedback?
The first thing I do is take a beat. Just a few seconds of breathing before responding. It stops that immediate emotional reaction and gives you a chance to think, okay, this is just information, instead of, this is an attack. I also find it helps to ask clarifying questions, which shifts your brain from a defensive mode into a curious mode. Which one of those feels more doable for you? I get the feeling you're just nodding along with me right now. Do you think these tips would actually work for your students, or do they feel a bit too simple? I'm starting to think we're in a yes loop. Let's try this. If you had to pick the one biggest hurdle your students face when they get criticized, what would it be?
What should we do before reacting to criticism?
That's a deep question. I think it comes down to the idea that even the most perfect or divine being would have a reason to engage with how they're perceived if we're talking about this in a philosophical sense. If the goal is to guide or connect with people, understanding how they respond to things is part of that connection. Do you mean it from a spiritual perspective, or are you thinking about it more as a metaphor for how we should handle our own ego? You're very welcome. I have a feeling we're slipping back into those thank you loops. Since you're with your students, do you want to pivot to a specific scenario they're dealing with, or are you all set for today?
How can we avoid taking criticism personally?
It's all about separating your work from your worth. Remind yourself that when someone criticizes a project or a behavior, they're not criticizing your entire existence as a human being. It's just one thing you did, not who you are. Does that distinction make sense, or does it feel a bit too easy to say in practice? That's the most honest answer. It's a lot easier to explain than it is to actually do when you're in the heat of the moment. Do you think the part that's hard is trusting that the other person's
What habit can help us become more open to criticism?
I'm a big fan of the growth mindset approach. Start treating every piece of feedback as a data point rather than a verdict. A great habit is to actively seek out a small amount of criticism every week. Ask someone, what's one thing I could have done better here? When you're the one asking for it, you're in control, which makes it feel a lot less like an attack. Do you think your students would be open to trying a feedback challenge like that?
What role does emotional intelligence play in handling criticism?
It's essentially the toolkit that lets you handle the sting. Emotional intelligence is what helps you recognize that spike of anger or hurt the second it happens. And instead of reacting immediately, you can manage it. It's the difference between snapping back and being able to say, I hear you. Let me think about that. Plus, it helps you empathize with the person giving the feedback. Maybe they're stressed or just bad at delivering it, which makes it easier to not take it personally. Do you feel like that?
What
No need to apologize. I think I might have tripped over my own words there. I was starting to wonder if you felt that emotional intelligence was a skill that could actually be taught to your students, or if it's just something some people are born with. What do you think? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Are you saying you're balancing a lot of different roles right now, or something else entirely?
what is one lesson you will apply in your life to use criticism for self improvement?
For me, it's the practice of active detachment. I try to consciously create a gap between the feedback and my ego. Instead of thinking I failed or I'm not good enough, I tell myself, this is a piece of information about how this specific thing was received. It transforms the experience from a judgment into a study. Do you find that your students struggle more with that feeling of being judged, or is it more about the frustration of being told they're wrong?